All right, everyone, welcome to episode 5 of Hacked by Halftime. I am Travis Weitzel. I am the co host of Hacked by Halftime under Victory Cybersecurity Consulting, which provides cybersecurity services to the sports industry. I have 15 years of intelligence and cyber experience through the Department of War. However, none of the statements made within this podcast are reflective of the department. Instead, they are my own opinion. And I will be joined by my awesome co-host, Steve Watchers. Steve, what's going on?
What's going on, man? Yeah, like Travis said, Steve Watchers, as we've said many times, eventually we'll probably stop talking about ourselves because they can just go and watch an episode. But yeah, I've been doing Intel for about 24 years now with the military, Department of War and everything. Worked heavily in the cyber doing intelligence as well the last few years. But again, like Travis said, anything I say is purely my opinion, nothing to do with the federal government whatsoever or anything else.
Awesome. All right. So today's episode is a bag of, or a can of worms, as they say, but it's an exciting topic, highly relevant in today's age of sports, and that is artificial intelligence, or AI, as it'll be referenced for the rest of this episode, most likely, and how it's changing the game of sports. And this is going to be a great episode. Steve and I talked, we could probably do like a 4-hour lecture on everything we want to unpack in this episode outline. So we're going to break it into 2 much shorter versions, maybe even 3, but we're going to start at the team and below level for this. And we're going to explore how AI is transforming the sports world. And we're going to look at it in this episode from a personal branding and NIL strategy to organizational analytics. Is really what we're going to dive into here. So we're gonna frame this episode as in why AI matters to sports more probably now than it ever has before. AI previously was a cool thing that maybe started with Amazon, right? Where you had the AWS next gen stats as they appeared on Thursday Night Football, as it would make predictive analytics based off of all the data, which is more large language model doing predictive analysis. But that's all kind of crammed into AI in its current state now, running off of large language models in the background. So, or fused with large language models now. But the sports world isn't about athleticism anymore. It's more about everything is ran off of algorithms. So, Steve, I don't know if you watched the Sunday Night Football game last night, but Detroit Lions went 0 for 5, I think it was, in 4th down conversions. And there's an algorithm behind that they're using to kind of break that data apart on whether or not to go for it. So, what are you seeing from the AI and sports perspective that's kind of driving this?
Well, so AI being new, right? The new flavor of the month when it comes to anything, IT, cyber, whatever bucket you want to put it in, which it would be in all of them, because AI is being used for everything. With sports, think of AI. What I like to tell people is when it comes to AI in sports, right? Like technically, this professional sports specifically have been doing it already for a long time to a point. They, like you said, their analytics is insane. I think the NBA, I could be wrong on this. It's NBA or MLB have the best analytics when it comes to supporting their leagues, and just at the rate in which they can get that information. Like Steph Curry and his shots, his shot placement, how many shots he took during a game, and how accurate, how many times he made them, and blah blah blah. Like, it's just insane. So people, think of AI automatically in analytics, but it's going so much further now.
Absolutely.
And I know we're going to talk about it heavily, but like the governance of AI and all that stuff. And it's kind of a, wild west right now with AI, because so many people, individuals have created their own AI platforms and programs and apps to use that, depending on, now you can't just use the good old chat GPT, which let's say it was your original, but originals, everybody knows it, right? User friendly, super simple to use. But depending on what you're trying to do, like if you're trying to create a video, or if you're trying to create a image, or if you want one specific for finances, like you can just literally Google using Google's AI platform through the Googs, and it tells you which AI programs and platforms to use based on what you're trying to get out of it. And it's just the Wild West right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the NBA. I remember one time I was researching for college. I was doing a paper on the NHL, and I like to, for each of my courses, pick a different sports league just to see, hey, how are they operating, right? Like what kind of technology are we using? The NHL shocked me, to be honest with you, and I just had to Google it real quick because I was so curious. Was because I remember reading an absurd stat, and I'm like, that can't be true, and it actually turned out to be true. Was positional data during a game
Mm,
or a match in the NHL. It's the precise locations of the players and the puck are transmitted 100 times per second, which is just it's so impressive to me that kind of data is being collected, and that's where AI or advanced data analytics. It used to be all hard coded, right?
yep.
Hard coded things that you needed a computer nerd in the closet to kind of create these crazy algorithms for you to dissect. And what companies like Amazon and Google and ChatGPT in some cases have done is scale it. They took the computer, or they took the nerd in the closet, and they said, hey, we're going to give you, instead of a closet, a whole building to work with data power, and all those kind of things. So yeah, it was crazy to me. 100 times per second is how they're rolling this. So, and I think looking at it, that's a great team perspective, I think, and how it's driving decisions for teams. And you talked about it as well, but AI is now a teammate. It seems like, where for people that use a lot of AI, you'll see some I'll call them interesting characters, like name their AI, right? And they talk to it or speak of it in a an actual name. And that's fair, right? Because like in today's world, you're so I'm not judging anyone out there, but you build that personal connection because you could be building like athletes now, right? Building your brand, making decisions off of what AI is at least informing your decisions of. And you're trying to grow your brand to a global audience. Maybe, hey, I play quarterback in the Midwest, but I want to be able to expand my brand to people in California or people in New York or whatever. You're going to probably look to AI to do your research for you and be asking the questions of what's trending in New York. How do I get on that trend,
Hmm.
right? So it really is like a teammate now, even at the personal level. What do you think? What do you think about that, man?
No, it is like it really is. It's if you're talking basketball, it's the fifth man on the court or the 12th man on the field for football. Like
Yeah,
it's that additional. I'm not gonna call it low cost by no means, but it's that additional tool that you have to improve the team, improve the individuals, improve the brand because the capability of it is almost limitless.
yeah,
Like we're going to talk about the governance of it. Like right now, it is kind of limitless because it's unrestricted. Really, like people are just going like far left, far right with it.
yeah,
GPT recently is a good example. They fixed the program to where it will not give you personal medical or legal advice because they
yeah,
had to go in and do that because they saw such an uptick in people using it for those purposes. And it's like, no, it's not, it was never really designed to do that, but you leave it to the masses. And no,
yeah,
I'm not going to use, I don't want to use the word abuse, but people are going to like find ways to
yeah.
use it that they was never really intended to do.
Exactly.
I have a really good example. I know somebody who I was talking to one day, and this person refuses to seek. I don't say refuses to seek. Excuse me.
Yeah.
They use a AI platform as their counselor.
Yeah. See.
They have a full out conversation, like what's bothering them, and it gives them feedback. And literally, like they're sitting in a room with a psychiatrist or psychologist,
Wow.
and working through whatever. Just having a conversation, and
Yeah.
that's what they use it for. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. Like I'm not
Yeah.
judging. It's
Yeah.
something I never thought of. But
Yep.
people are creative,
Yeah. For sure.
so you can use it
And
for
it,
anything.
yeah. And it goes to show you, I mean, because I'm sure athletes go through that, right? I'm almost positive where, hey, I don't want to talk to anyone because I'm wired to be built different,
Yep.
and they turn to different avenues. And there's been some stuff in the news where the reason Chat GPT, part of the reason at least, is there's been people that have committed suicide based off of the recommendations that Chat GPT gave them, which took them to court and all these kind of things. So I would say seek professional help, right?
Yeah.
But I think you and
Well,
I would both agree on that.
like you and I went to that conference at University of Tennessee Knoxville last year, right?
Yeah.
Together, and we sat through the presentation about post sports, post
Yeah.
collegiate sports, and athletes being lost because that was their entire identity, and then they didn't go pro, and they
Yeah.
didn't know what to do in their lives. Like they lost that part of them. Part of them was gone because it's an identity crisis, right? We've dealt with I somewhat dealt with it leaving the military after so long.
Yeah.
Athletes deal with it all the time. Like it's people who leave one what they know their entire life and move on to something completely different, you're going to have that identity crisis most likely. And so the likelihood of somebody in that situation, and specifically athletes, using AI as a platform to, I'm not going to use, I'm not going to talk the counseling piece, but just try to figure out what to do with their lives next or what they're interested in. That's another tool, another way to use it.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that was the asthma conference that we went to
Yeah,
down there in
as
Knoxville.
asthma. Yeah,
Yeah. It was two scholars out of the University of Arkansas that really crushed it. And it was
yep,
interesting. I think that really resonated with us as active duty and you being a veteran, where it was I think a cross between military and sports we didn't foresee or really take into account. So that was a great presentation down there. If you get a chance to go to that conference, highly recommend it. Some of the students that are out there are just absolutely crushing it.
yeah,
But back to AI,
yeah,
right? We're talking about how AI is rewriting the sports playbook, one data point, one brand deal, and one game at a time. So let's jump into the personal side here. We already touched on it a little bit there, where we're talking about the safe practices for AI for athletes, right? So one thing we definitely want to hit on as advice to athletes is before you start getting on any AI platform, is verify the platform.
yep,
You need to absolutely do your homework. So what is a verified platform? So before you put in any data, you need to make sure that you have Googled this, is what I would say. Do your research, not even necessarily Google. Do your research on what the platform is. Because if you're uploading images of yourself, you're putting in maybe brands that you want to work with and the amount of money they're offering you, sensitive contract details, things of that nature. You put that in, and all of a sudden, for example, a platform like DeepSeek, which was found to be providing information to like the government, right, of China and stuff like that. So there's multiple platforms out there that are highly shady, not just DeepSeek, but there's others that are out there that they'll take your information that you given and essentially use it against you to blackmail you or hold you hostage to your own information, right? So Steve, I know you and I were kind of talking about that beforehand, is some of these shady things that are out there, like you said, images, videos, and things like that.
yeah, yeah. I think like you said, verify what you're working with. We all joke around. We all know, like, when you read the fine print, right? Like, read the fine print, because what a lot of people don't realize about AI platforms is when you upload that information, and that's something as simple as typing a question or asking for help, whatever the case is, as soon as you input that data that is under your account information, because you're logged in, obviously, that information could no longer be yours, in the sense of they can use that however they see fit. Or it's not going to say this in like the fine print, but finding out where their servers are hosted,
Yeah.
because if they're hosted in a foreign country, that company may have an agreement with that foreign country that foreign country can at any time pull data from it.
Yep.
Like, there's a lot of little things people got to pay attention to when it comes to AI platforms. Because again, I'm not going to call it the new version of the internet by no means, but think of it that way. The old saying of once it's on the internet, it's always out there. Same thing. Once you put something into an AI platform, it's
Yeah.
in there for good, because that is how AI functions.
And
And yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and it's interesting because as you're stating as well, right, is if an NI if a college athlete or a pro athlete even is putting data in there to get feedback, there's a really good example of Samsung back in 2023. This happened to them where engineers put proprietary source code. So what is making Samsung run on the background is that source code, and they put it into Chat GPT and it ended up getting leaked. And what athletes have to kind of consider is that personal data, those personal pictures. If you post it in there, one, it could be leaked, right? If there's a backend leaked, which has happened. Chat GPT is the most popular AI interface right now, is what I would say, at least according to the numbers that are out there. But what's interesting though is they still get hacked, right? So even when it's like, hey, well, my phone didn't get hacked. Yeah, but the information that you keep on your phone was also copy and pasted into GPT, and as a result. And then on top of that too, what I've seen with some of these AI platforms is Steve has personal data that he doesn't want anyone else to know about. But then if I search for Steve Watchers in the AI platform, it could produce data that you input and that you
Correlate.
thought, well, yeah, that you thought was just stuck in your little silo of an AI or a chat is actually findable by all users if that's what they're looking for. So let's talk about sensitive data, Steve. What's your what's your idea here?
Sensitive data, right? Like if it's sensitive, and people like myself and Travis, so I'll tell you what, we look at sensitive a little differently, obviously, because of our backgrounds
Yeah,
in the government and everything else. But then you have sensitive data, so it could be PAI, it could be PHI, personal,
identifiable information.
identifiable
Yeah,
personal identifiable information, personal health information, stuff like that. That kind of sensitive data, this information you never want to give to somebody, i.e., social security numbers, date of birth, health information, that kind of stuff. God, don't put it in there. Like, just don't. Try to avoid it at all costs. Like, there's no reason you should. The sports, the individual, everything functioned for a long time without it. That information, once you put it in there, is again no longer yours. And like you were talking about, with that, like the Air Force member who leaked classified information on accident by using AI summarization tools incorrectly. Again, publicly available chatbot.
yep.
And sometimes it's not even just, you don't even need to, you don't need to input all the exact information. You can put enough bits and pieces. Think of it as a puzzle. You put enough pieces of that puzzle laid out.
Yeah,
I know what that puzzle is now. And
100%.
but each individual piece by itself may not be sensitive, but I want to say not the correlation, but yeah, the correlation of the information can paint the bigger picture and could burn, an athlete or a team on the back end for sure. Like,
And
even if it's, go ahead.
yeah, it's nuts to me that, it's something I haven't considered until we were researching this, because I think of AI platforms as going to a specific platform to conduct what I need to do my business on, whatever I'm using AI to do. What's fascinating is the chatbot aspect of this, where it's like that little thing that pops up in the right or the bottom right
Mm-hmm.
screen a lot of the times, and it says, "Hey, I'm your chatbot here to help you."
Yep.
Or it'll even present itself as like a person, quote unquote, which really is just like a thumbnail from the internet. And it's like, "Oh, I'm here to help you on this person." And it's really AI. But I never thought about using that, like what happened to the Air Force, like athletes being like, "Hey, this is what I need, AI chatbot." And really it's just a setup
Yeah.
to get yeah, information out of people. So definitely definitely an issue. And then with that, right, as we talk about sensitive data, it's also securing your account. I think the reason we harp on this, anyone that's listened from episode 1 to now, this piece of advice will always be in every episode almost.
Yeah.
It is the number one way for you to get got, right? Is by not securing your accounts. Make sure you have multi-factor authentication. I know it can be painful sometimes. Trust me, I get annoyed at it where I'm like, "Oh, my phone's in the other room and I have to get up to do MFA on my laptop." But you need to do it on your social media and especially on your branding platforms, whatever you're using to get yourself out there. There is no doubt going to be an uptick in AI generated attacks. We're seeing that. That's a whole
Well,
nother episode that we have, but yeah, go ahead.
yeah, like, so interesting thing. We're dealing with a car dealership right now because we're considering trading one of our cars for a more commuter car because we commute every day.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I sent, we found a car we liked. Hit the button. Hey, we're interested. Here's my email. Like, go ahead and get me the information on this car. And I got an email back, like you always do, right from the dealership, saying, "Hey, we got your email. It's after hours. However, somebody will get a hold of you tomorrow, blah, blah, blah." But it had a name. And so I was like, okay, cool. And so the next day I'd gotten a call. I had a missed call from what I figured was that dealership. So I was like, oh, it's probably that person from the email. I called them back and they're like, "Oh yeah, we called you." I was like, "Well, is so and so there?" Because I was going off the email thinking it was them,
Yeah.
because whoever it was didn't leave a voicemail. And literally the guy, the salesman at the car dealership goes, "Oh, no, 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 that's not a real person." I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "No, that's our AI." So
God.
so even car dealerships, like as soon as you hit, input your email, phone number,
Yeah.
their systems are going to automatically email you and send you a text and or call you, whatever you tell it to do. And I was like, "Wait, you guys are using AI for that?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh, I have questions, but that's not why we're
Yeah.
talking."
What happened to where did my email
Yeah,
go?
exactly. Luckily, I use my email I don't care about. Yeah, but I was like, "Oh my God." Like, so if athletes think about something like that, that's all it takes. If a sector of business, i.e., car sales, is already using it for that, and how easy that was, and I didn't even pick up on it because it used, you know, "Dear Steven, thank you for inquiring, blah blah blah," you
Yep.
know, and then it had a person's name.
Yeah.
And the dealership's phone number, I was like, "That's a real person, probably."
Yeah.
Nope, not at
Oh
all.
my days.
Yeah,
That's nuts. And another reason we bring up that securing your accounts, right, is you need to protect yourself essentially. It's gonna happen. It happens to everyone where your account gets compromised, but you need to be able to quickly realize that. And with MFA, it'll help, right? Multi-factor authentication. And what that is like when you log in and it says, we're gonna send you a text that has a pin or whatever, a passcode that you have to type in. By taking some of these small steps, it'll save you a lot of heartbreak in the future. And then another thing is just that brand protection. So I'm sure everyone has seen the AI generated deep fake scams that go around where people get essentially swindled right into giving money and things like that. But if you're an athlete and someone uses that and you're the athlete that's like the deep fake, I mean that's not a good look, right? And I know there's nothing they can do to necessarily protect themselves from that with the amount of technology and scammers that are out there. But if you're taking small steps to say, hey, I can prove this isn't me, and you come out and you get it in front of that to say, do not, I would never ask you for money type deal.
yeah.
I think it would go a long way in securing really that social credibility, right? And helping your brand and all of those kind of things.
Yeah, so I mean, absolutely social credibility because that's what your brand is, right? Like any person can do 1,000 great things. All it takes is one negative thing. And it may not even be true, or it could be the story was, twisted,
Yeah.
but that it takes one negative
Yeah.
indication of an individual on their character, whatever the case is, and they are now, their brand has gone downhill drastically.
Especially with the high click media, dude.
Yeah.
Everyone wants the clicks. So
My God.
and one topic we were talking about before the show, and it came up in our research at the personal level of looking at AI and building your brand as an athlete is kind of I would call it an emerging threat, if you will, or at least a threat vector. And I don't think we're really necessarily prepared as both cybersecurity and as sports professionals, right? I can't speak for the sports professional aspect, but based off of everything I've seen currently with how they're handling it at the collegiate level, and this is no disrespect to anyone at all, but like now you have high school NIL starting to enter the chat, right? It's like, hey, college went great, well governed, everyone's happy, and there's not any kind of rift. Now you have high school NIL. So let's dig into that at the personal level. And Steve, what do you got? I know you had some good talking points on this one.
Yeah, so the whole high school thing, like that's so
Yeah.
concerning on so many levels. Obviously, this could go on for this topic could be its own
Yeah.
podcast for sure. With that being said, like how it works, with high school, like there's endorsements, appearance. People will pay for companies will pay the athlete to appear, so appearances, licensing, autographs, and memorabilia. So the big thing with the regulations, though, that they're still finagling right now, I'm going to call it, still working through, is every state is different, right? State by state variations. Like I actually am looking at a map right now. High school nail policy. Only 3 states are confirmed prohibited. 1, 2, 3, 4 are under membership consideration. Texas is confirmed permitted, and the rest are confirmed permitted. Sorry, 5 are confirmed prohibited. Alaska. I mean
Okay.
Hawaii. I didn't see Hawaii. Like I get it. Like I do. At the end of the day, I do. But now you're talking about not an adult legally
Yeah.
who is going to see possibly enormous amounts of money. Oh, that's right. One thing I did miss was the regulation state by state.
Yeah.
No pay to play. So
Okay.
not supposed to pay to play, but we know how that works out. Let's be real.
Yep.
No school employee involvement, which school staff or employees cannot be involved in arranging or facilitating nail deals.
So
Okay.
yeah, let's pick that one apart real
Mhm.
quick. So you can't have a school official, which is part of the NCAA is compliance, right? On these athletic directory staffs. We know we've cold called and cold emailed probably about 100 colleges now, right? And there's always a compliance person. And they're probably busting their hump to make sure all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed because of NIL. And they have the NCAA athlete has a whole team kind of around them to help
Yeah.
with these decisions. I mean, these are large decisions. Even if it's a $500 transaction, right? That's a huge deal from going from 3 years ago, no athletes could get paid at all, to now $500 is huge in my opinion, right? And then as a high school student, like you said, not an adult, I don't want to say more easily taken advantage of, but I mean, let's be real, you need some assistance is what I'll say, because people are going to take advantage of you. We've seen that at the collegiate level, we've seen it professionally. When money is involved and there's an opportunity for people to try to exploit somebody else to get a big old bag of cash or to get whatever they want. I mean, that's terrifying, Steve.
Yeah. No, 100%. Like, so like you were talking about the compliance people, most of the compliance people in your universities in the collegiate level have law backgrounds.
Yeah.
Like a lot of them are lawyers or
Yeah.
have been lawyers, or, at least worked in a law office of some type. Like they understand the law as it's written and can argue that. And that's what they're there for, to help support and read those contracts. Like, no, this doesn't, this is shady, or whatever the case is. Who's providing that assistance to the high school kid? And especially if you start talking about a kid, like, I don't know, pick a random state
Well,
high
think
school
about
in the
yeah,
middle of nowhere. Like that, all of a sudden this kid's getting hundreds of thousands of dollars because they're great at their sport, but yet their city, like you and I talk about, and some places like Texas where football's huge, high school football,
yeah,
like almost the entire economy of that city or that town,
yeah.
relies on that. And now that it's just,
And it's fascinating because, like you said, we could do a whole episode on this, which this might inspire it. But like, I think about the Arch Mannings coming out of high school,
yep,
right? Arch Manning. I mean, he was on ESPN as a junior,
yep,
and they're like, "Where is he going to go? Where is he going to go?" The amount of national publicity that he coveted, fascinating, right? And then you also, like, I think of the amount of money they would give that high school kid. And Arch Manning is, I would say, kind of a unicorn to an extent because of his family background.
yep,
They have the support system required, right?
yeah,
Let's look at some other athletes, right? That may not have that support system as a top 10 recruit in their
hmm,
respective sport. They're still going to get paid buckets of money without that support system. Now, hopefully, they are being advised correctly. And this is where I'm a huge fan. I know we are a huge fan of the player development people that
yeah,
are out there that advise in these situations. Hopefully they know to hire one of them. But let's think about too, is that kid maybe not even a top ESPN 300 or a top female basketball player coming out, right? Is they could still get $50,000 contracts with somebody out there because in the I think in the one regulation you were talking about before the show, it said what's the pay? It's got to be. I know it's in
yeah. That was the
quotation.
next reasonable rates.
Yeah.
Compensation for Neil's deal must be at a quote reasonable rate.
What is that?
Yeah, well, because you look at like what's a reasonable rate for an athlete, a high school athlete in New York
Yeah.
or in the Silicon Valley, California, versus like, I don't know, somewhere in Iowa. I'm just throwing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
It's still like a small town.
What have we always heard? The cornbread boys and
Yeah.
girls from Nebraska.
Yeah. Right.
Oh,
Like, but
dude,
still at the
what's
same
reasonable rate?
time.
And
Yeah.
who's reasonable rate? Because what if that kid, because that to me that differs if the kid comes from I'm not going to call it, I'll just call it a well-off
Yeah.
family, right?
Yeah.
Versus a kid who's coming from, living on government assisted housing, his entire family is, and all that stuff. That is two completely separate worlds.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
what is a fair, and again, I'm sure there's more
And
black and white out there, but
yeah. And then when we talk reasonable rates as well, right? Are they considering it like social media clicks, company
yeah,
branding?
I don't,
And then is it unreasonable? Because then you think about some of these small town lures, right? That you have as you go all throughout the country, doesn't matter where. We're like, hey, that high school female basketball player or that high school female soccer player who's just a stud and was crushing it and got a D1 scholarship or maybe a D2, but they're looked at as a hometown.
hero.
Right? A hometown hero, exactly. So they get car dealerships, they do this and that, but, like, what would be if you're not an ESPN ranked recruit, can you not get a $100,000 contract because it's not considered reasonable, right? And the reason we bring all this up, I know we got into it there, but, like, the reason we also bring this up is the same issue that is plaguing that I foresee will plague, this idea is the same thing that cybersecurity has an issue with, which is there is no national policy that dictates what you need to do cybersecurity wise. So as a result, you have states that create their own
Mm-hmm.
policy, and they're all differing.
Yeah.
As an example, right, is in some states you're allowed to go to certain websites. In other states, you're not allowed to go to that website. Like there's this huge disparity, and a lot of people, a lot of organizations will just apply the California is a big leader in cybersecurity policy because of Silicon Valley. They'll apply that, but I think the same thing is going to affect NIL at the high school level of like who's the governing body.
There's not right now. There's not one, and
Yeah,
that's and you have to rely, like you said.
yeah,
What I understand, so if what I'm reading, the
yeah,
way it's written, is Chris is right. So it's no school employee involvement. School staff or employees cannot be involved in arranging or facilitating. So I wonder if that's where it cuts it off. Like, okay, I'm a top recruit athlete in high school, for, getting multiple D1 offers. And then, then the local car dealership, right over right, comes in and says, hey, we want to, we want to do a Neil contract with you. Now that contract, because my school I attend, the staff and the employees did not facilitate that. Are they still allowed to
yeah.
assist and making sure I'm doing it legally? It makes sense. I'm not going to get,
What level of
shafted.
expertise do they have,
Yeah,
right?
no, exactly. Because where I went to school, high school, like we had our athletic director, we had our coaches. I think our vice principal, because we had multiple vice principal. One was like personnel, one was athletic. I think, but then you had your guidance counselors, and that's it.
Yeah,
Like they're dealing with the hundreds, if not thousands, of other students. Like, what do they go to training for this? Like, are they going to be required that? You know,
yeah.
I don't know. Like,
It's a
it's going
lot
to get
to it's a
yeah.
lot to unpack. It's a lot to unpack for
I
sure.
hope it works out well. I hope they come up with something, or I hope at least a couple states find a way to lead the way, and then other states follow suit.
Yeah,
But in the day, they gotta their number one priority needs to be protecting those kids.
100%. Because at the end of the day, that's what they are, right? Is they're still kids. She might be the best basketball player the world has ever seen. She's still a kid at ninth
Yeah,
grade. And
God, yeah. Like even high school, like
yeah,
seniors.
yeah, absolutely. It's
Some high schoolers graduating high school don't even know how to drive yet,
yeah,
or never driven a car.
or have early grads, right?
Yeah,
Because some of these young athletes are also geniuses, so they graduate at 16 and stuff like that.
or they're playing other leagues and they do school on their own.
Yeah,
And they, so they can focus on their sport, which I get it. I'm not knocking it. I mean, that's the way to
yeah,
go. But yeah, it's Pandora's box in my opinion.
yeah,
Because what's next? Pee Wee League?
yeah. Like,
Oh, look at this
what are
kid.
we
He's
doing?
great at T-ball.
Yeah.
Eat local pizza restaurant, just
I mean,
nailed
think
him.
about
Like, what?
the pressure that puts on kids, man.
Oh
It's
yeah,
just there's a lot to spiral on
yeah.
there, for
Oh,
sure.
100%. No, that's a good point. Like the pressure and the psychological effect it could have on those
Yeah,
kids who are not developed
yeah,
mentally,
yeah,
to deal with that type of pressure.
absolutely. And I mean, we see it all the time with like lottery winners where like, hey, you're given an absurd amount of money and you lose it all because you're not mentally prepared or have the advisement
Yeah.
required. And we see it in the pro leagues as well, right? Like ESPN has a whole 30 for 30 on
Mm-hmm.
this situation. So yeah, that is something I know we will definitely be keeping a pulse on is this high school NIL. It just opens up so many attack surfaces for cyber threats and raises a lot of red flags for sure.
Yeah.
But moving on from the personal level, we got about 10, 20 minutes here, but we want to look at the team level. And the team level really comes down to if you're in a athletic department or if you're on a professional team right now, what does your internal AI policy look like? What does it look like? Right? Do you have
Do you have one?
yeah. Yeah, right? Like it's something that I think should be or not should, but needs to be in writing because what you're going to do is we all know that athletic departments, especially in the NCAA world, are busting their humps, right? They're stretched thin already. There's no such thing as an off season with recruiting and all of these kind of things. Same could be said professionally because you're doing it for a living. And as a result of that, you're probably trying to find a way, not necessarily to cut corners, but to become more efficient, right? If you want to frame it in that sense. So the lesson here is like scouting reports, contract reviews,
Stats.
you want to touch on the stat part? I was just thinking about that. So like,
Well, everybody already uses to get your stats, to know what your stats are. How many times I'm just gonna use football as an example.
Yeah.
If I'm getting ready to play a team, regardless of how strong they are or not, I'm going to look at the stats of how many times do they average running a ball, passing a ball. Okay, now we're going to break, and how often do they punt on fourth down or actually go for it, right? Which you're starting to see a lot more nowadays. People are going for it on fourth down. The factor is honestly more of field position and where that fourth down hits. But then, let's just look at passing. Now it's going to break down even further, right?
Yeah.
It's just that tree of the that quarterback stats when it comes to, is he passing, what's his accuracy rating at
Yeah.
before 10 yards, inside of 10 yards, inside of 15 yards, is he better with wideouts, is he better with slants, like all that stuff comes into play. How quick going back to Archie Manning, he's known, and which I watched really well this weekend. He did a great job showing how quick his release is. That
Yeah.
kid has a release that I was like,
Whoa.
oh wow, that thing is gone, and it's a bullet.
Yeah.
He's got an arm
Yep.
that plays into a factor versus somebody else who's more of a traditional pocket quarterback who has to scramble a lot more,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So AI,
Yeah.
to take all that information and put it in AI and say, come up with a plan. Obviously this is very
Yeah.
rudimentary, but come up with a plan to defend or throw, not throw, disrupt this
Yeah.
and this team's play, its typical playbook over the last 3 games. Here's their stats.
Yeah.
What is
Or
their
like,
likelihood
hey,
of,
run it through scenarios.
yeah, 100%.
Hey, it's
And
third and
then
5 in
injury
the
reports.
fourth quarter, and there's 13 minutes left on the
Yeah.
clock. They're at this position of the field based off of all the background that I
Yeah.
just given you with. I've uploaded the last 5 years of stats or whatever it is, however long that head coach has been there.
Yeah.
It's the play they're most likely to run in that position, right? Trend
I know.
analysis, if you
Yeah,
will.
I never watched it, but
Yeah.
I think what's it called? Young Sheldon, I think it was called, right?
Okay.
The show.
Yeah.
There's a clip that I see all the time on the internet, because obviously I follow a lot of sports stuff.
Yeah.
Is when his dad's coaching the high school football team, and they were struggling on fourth down, and they're like, we're gonna punt, and Sheldon, who's like 7 or 8, of course, but
Yeah.
in the movie, in the show, he's a genius, goes, statistically speaking, you should not punt, you should actually go for it, and here's why. And he breaks it down by where the field is, how many yards per play they're gaining,
Yeah.
like all this stuff. And of course, he's a genius, so he can do that, on the
Yep.
show. And so his dad does it. Well, they fail to make the first down, but then the other team has a penalty,
Yeah.
so they automatically get it.
Jeez.
And so from then on, like, supposedly, again, I never watched the
Yeah.
episode, but like that, like his dad in the always went up for it on fourth down. If they were past a certain yard line, we're
Yeah.
going for it. Statistically speaking, like,
That's funny.
yeah, it's crazy what you could do with it.
Yeah. Because then you also have another pitfall. There is all teams have a way they do their analytics. So if you're giving if it's proprietary information, right?
Mhm.
So like the way you are dissecting what you're dissecting and the information you were given in that scouting report is driven. Like if, for example, as a Bears fan, right? If the Bears are playing the Lions and then the Packers are playing the Lions, the scouting reports may be similar on the lines from the Bears and Packers perspective, but they're not going to be the same because they're using different analytics to kind of break that team apart in Detroit. So just a fascinating way to understand that, hey, everything you're copying and pasting in there as a player maybe, or whatever the case may be, because proprietary analytics go way further than just what's happening on the field. It's also scouting, right?
Yeah.
And things of that nature of like, who's got red flags there and et
Well,
cetera, et
let's
cetera.
break down, even like, not say break down, but
Yeah.
you could look at it as like, okay, if I'm a coach, I want to use AI to establish the most efficient week of practice.
Yeah.
So I tell it, like, we knew this past weekend or whatever, we had a hard game. Like, it was a tough game, whatever the case may be. I need to have the most efficient week of practice to get maybe should I give them more time off, or just, not as much time off, but maybe less stressful practice, whatever. And you're using it for that because you're looking at how many minutes they played, how many downs they played, how often they ran, a certain distance at a certain speed. Well, this person's probably a little bit more tired because we were doing a lot of deep routes this game, so that
Yeah.
your receivers ran a lot more this past weekend, or this past, whatever the case is, versus normal. So you're using AI for that to look at how to best structure your practices, your meetings, all that stuff, because players are tired. They don't
exactly.
wanna sit through 4 hours of, watching game film. You've lost them at that point. So, hey, it's gonna tell you only do it for 2, you can use it for anything.
Yeah. So then it's interesting you bring that up because then we go on to a use case where an optical tracking company exposed raw player movement data on unsecured servers. And what that means is that essentially this company was contracted by a bunch of different teams. When they took that data that they're collecting on the field, they put it on a server, and a server is essentially where all your data is residing. So that way you can access it at a later point. But in this case, it was unsecure. So what that means is anyone could probably get in there and access it. So an important aspect of this is you could have the most robust eye and motion tracking systems like we talk about with the NHL, 100 data points per second. But if the underlying infrastructure, which is like that server, is left out in the open, I mean, at that point, all that sensitive data that you just collected and spent a ton of money to collect is just everybody's information now, right? So it's pretty crazy to me. But I think it's something in regards to supply chain that you really have to look at.
Well, it's also the basics. Like, again, we talked about it, I think it was last episode, where when you're contracting with a company to store your data, to use their software hardware to try to get in an edge, right?
Yep.
You're now relying and expecting them professionally to do their job and protect your information.
Yeah.
You don't know what their hygiene, cybersecurity hygiene looks like. You don't know that the poor kid in the closet who was up all night working on it
Yep.
was tired because he was running on 3 Monsters, 2 cups of 2 things of coffee and, Hot Pockets.
Yep.
So he forgot to enable a whatever the case is, protect
Yeah.
it like he was supposed to. He forgot to click a button or, his password, he matched another team's password or another
Yeah.
section of the server's password, and it's something simple. But
Yep.
again, these teams don't own these programs,
No,
these platforms.
they're all third party
Yeah.
contract.
As far as I know, they are.
Yeah.
I
I
can
mean, I
see.
would be excited to hear, hey, so and so team has their own AI platform or data analytics platform integrated with AI. I'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
dang. But with that, at the team level, right? The reason we really want to highlight the team level is it's important that even though you're an athletic department or you're an NFL or you're an NBA, the Women's National Soccer League, right? WNBA, you need to have your own policies in place. You cannot depend on third parties, number one, and then to hold your employees accountable, your teammates accountable is really what we're talking about. You need to be able to guide them to safe policies. And the reason we highlight that is there was a really good article pushed out by, let me get the name of this company because it's, of course, the dang cookies, by SC Magazine. SC is a SC Media is one of the better companies. I like them personally. But what's interesting is they published an article that says that copy and paste now exceeds file transfer as top corporate data exfiltration vector. So instead of a employee having to move data if they wanted to be like corporate espionage, right? If and you see this actually a lot, or not a lot, but there's definitely use cases in sports of like, hey, this person's leaving this team and they want to send all of their files, or the New York Knicks and Toronto Raptors just went through this as well, as where an employee sent a bunch of files, scouting reports, etc. That would be like data exfiltration, as they are taking data and moving it off to another location for use. What's interesting in this case is now it's Control C is and Control V, which is hotkeys for copy and paste, because they're putting it into browsers.
Mhm.
They're putting it into AI platforms. So really, like, an attacker doesn't need to come into your corporate area to necessarily exfil data if they can get in between you and the AI platform, which is not as hard as people would like to believe, especially on these complex networks that the sports industry is working with, especially athletic departments. That is now the number one way to get data is Control C, Control V into an AI platform. Times are changing.
Yeah, it's scary, depending on how you look
Yeah.
at it. I think it's a great tool to have, but people gotta be smart with it. People gotta keep abreast of what's going on, follow updates, because yeah, it can get out of hand real quick
Yep.
if you're not careful. Like, don't get me wrong, I use Chat GPT and one or two others, but for little things, and my wife and I are both very particular about what we put in that sucker.
Yeah.
Like, I will never put my name into it. I will never put personal details. Like, if I'm like, well, I need something, here's the output. I need something to answer this or
Yeah.
help with this. Say, hey, an individual is looking to do this,
Yeah.
blah blah blah. Like, I keep it as bland as possible.
Yeah.
But
That's
it,
certainly a TTP, right? Like at
yeah,
the end of the day, if you can take any measures that you possibly can to protect yourself, and that's what it comes down to is, I mean, we keep hitting on it, but I think we know both how important it is like athletic departments need to look for help to get ahead of this now. It's going to be a train wreck when multiple large universities that are paying their staffs a good amount of money, right? And it's like, well, you can go get X university's playbook because everything was dumped into GPT or dumped into Gemini or whatever the case may be for the last 5 years, you know? So I think teams need to be highly aware of what they're doing and seek help for creating policies that can direct this.
well, that, and we already know, like, you hear about all the time now how AI is going to take over jobs, right?
Yeah.
A lot of jobs that you no longer need people for that you can use AI to do.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
that's great. Like, it's great in the aspect of, I understand, because it cuts costs, right? It's
Yep.
in cybersecurity, we know the number one threat is the human being,
100.
the password, because there's so many reasons. But that being said, that also opens you up for more vulnerability.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not careful.
And then tying it back to the players, right?
Yep.
With NIL as they build their brands, they're in a tough situation in my opinion. I mean, we talked about the high school aspect, but even going further is okay, yeah, I want to be marketable. Well, you have options, which is like hire a marketing agency, which could cost money, or they could try to build it themselves through AI to say like, hey, what build me a marketing plan, right? And then it's the execution of that can become difficult. But still, I think they're in a real tough spot as they try to compete in this space. What's up?
Dude, so you said marketing agency. I was like, I don't, I just Googled it.
Yeah.
What does that cost to hire a marketing agency to support an individual?
Yeah.
It ranges from $1,000 per month to up to $30,000 per month.
Just filthy. You
Dude,
know, and maybe
sorry.
there's an opportunity for universities, right? In my opinion, I think there's a lot of underutilized talents that are out there. So take a business major and make it their, I don't know, their final, or, give them almost like a capstone type situation, which is go work with the athletic department. You're going to essentially build this marketing promotion. You're going to do this, right? Same with maybe some cybersecurity pros that are out there, or students that are like, hey, do a vulnerability assessment on our architecture type deal. So it's just very fascinating. I feel bad for the players for sure. Not necessarily bad in the sense that like I'm pitying or
We have
anything.
empathy for you.
Yeah, is you're trying to make your money, rightfully so, and I just feel like there's a lot of gaps cyber wise that aren't being accounted for in there because as we know, a lot of colleges that we've reached out to, and it's I get it because it's a education piece maybe in regards to that, or something along those lines where they say no, we have an IT department, and not understanding, if you want to trigger some cybersecurity guys right now, that's the way to do it, right? But same with IT, because IT is looking at it like that's not in my job role.
The
So it's
beeps and the boops versus the
yeah.
gate.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those things where that, and we'll do an episode. I already have the episode outlined for us where we talk about the difference between IT and cybersecurity. So that way we can help educate those in the athletic world that, hey, these are two separate things and you might need to account for your risks in a different manner to help protect your players. Because that's what you're trying to do at the end of the day as an athletic department and as a professional staff is develop your players into great human beings as well as world-class athletes to help you go win the game, but it's also protecting them as well. It's an investment that you're making, so you have to protect that investment.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think that puts a good end to this episode. The next AI episode, we have a few different courses we could go with guests, as well as we still want to speak to the enterprise level and breaking out threats that have been using AI and how they apply to sports. So tune in for the next episode. We look forward to it, and thank you for listening.